Mira Business FM, where business comes to talk.
This is the Morning Drive. It's Mira Business FM. More news. Saha's going to be back at 9 o'clock this morning. And we have a number of discussions to enjoy today. But I did want to make just a quick reminder that we've a new show that's just started here at Mira Business FM as well. It's called Crossroads. It's in collaboration, or as the kids say, it's a collab with Middlesex University. It's presented by Dr. David Tully, who is a professor of media there, and Dima Magalse as well, who's also from Middlesex. It's all about the business of entertainment and media, and quite a lot more as well. Every Friday at 1 to 2, and wherever you find your podcasts. And the first edition is up online as well. It's AI and recruitment that we turn our attention to now. From the 1st of January this year, Abu Dhabi government implemented a new human resources law, and it's designed to modernise public sector employment by embedding a merit-based hiring, performance-driven advancement, and competitive benefits across more than 25,000 roles. It moves away from traditional kind of tenure-based systems towards capability, results, and excellence. That's what we are hearing. Now, the reforms also include accelerated promotion pathways for high achievers, enhanced parental and flexible work benefits, and clear career progression tied to performance. Now, how is this going to work? How does it link with the real-world challenge of matching talent with opportunity? And how can AI help as well? Dr. Ali Raza is a professor of computing and AI. He's the founder of byteSpark.ai, which is a UAE-built recruitment platform. And he's in the studio with me, and it's great to see you, Dr. Ali.
Same here. Thank you very much for having me. Great to be with you.
Appreciate you coming in. So, as I've said, I've kind of outlined where we are and what we wanted to talk about today. But as of the 1st of January, a new merit-based HR law in Abu Dhabi in the public sector shifts hiring and advancement towards performance and capability. First question, really, what's prompted the reform, and also what does it aim to achieve?
So I think the reform, the policy that they have is actually a very good one, because when I have been working with students over the 10 years that I've been here as a professor, what I've heard a lot is, I don't understand why that person ended up getting the job, right? I think I'm way better than that person. Or, you know, I'm not happy with working in this organization because a person that is not really pulling their weight is actually getting promoted, right?
So these are things you hear a great deal, aren't
you
they?
hear a lot about them.
Yeah.
So I think there is a lot of disengagement that actually comes with that, with your employees, with your talented merit-based talent that you actually have in your organization. If they do not see that the real currency of progression is your hard work, your performance, and your capability, and others are able to actually move forward just because of their proximity to who they know, right, and who they can actually spend time with, that is something that leads to a lot of quiet quitting, right? So I think this policy is something that is definitely going to help in making sure that people do not get demotivated in the place that they work, and they actually begin to realize that yes, the true currency of progression is hard work and dedication.
Quiet quitting is a great phrase, by the way. I haven't heard that for years. That is good to hear that back. But it's very easy, isn't it, I guess? And this is not a problem that's particular to the UAE. This is wherever you go, any country on earth, I suppose. Sometimes people are preferred for reasons other than that they're great for the jobs. It's very easy to see why people feel disenfranchised or disillusioned.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think you're absolutely right. This is something that I've worked in many different parts of the world in my time. And I've seen that, you will have different types of cultures, you have different types of human biases that come in. You may rub somebody off the wrong way, but actually you're performing very well, right? Somebody may feel threatened by you in the organization. So it's something that is, I think it's just part of being human, right? And if we can bring in the capabilities that allow us to be able to identify these kind of signals in organizations and be able to root them out, I think that's something that really you could say AI is doing its job.
You could. It sounds like it should be very simple. Of course, it isn't as simple, but we'll try and analyze some of the reasons. How might this change or perhaps influence the private sector in terms of talent strategies as well, do you think?
Well, I think once the governments start to see the value of this and they are able to set the benchmark, then what I see is the governments can actually start to mandate these kind of capabilities,
Yeah.
right? You could actually start to see a great shift towards merit-based hiring if companies are told that any hiring that you do, you have to be compliant, right? The approach that you use for hiring or for recruitment or for internal promotion is something that has to be explainable, right? It's something that can be audited. It is not just the whim of one person, right? There are proper ways of, or rubrics that are used to evaluate a person's work, and those are not being evaluated purely based on a human being's view, right? And I've actually developed some of these capabilities in the past and in places where I've worked, and after I've left, I still hear back from them saying, you know what, that thing you developed for us is really helping us after you left. So I think it's the power of AI can definitely help overcome some of these issues that people have in organizations.
AI is also dispassionate as well.
Yeah, so
It
it's not
tells you it's just how it is. It's just the truth. Isn't
exactly. It's going to actually look at the evidence,
Yeah.
right? And if the evidence is very clearly provided and the rubrics are very clearly defined, and in the rubrics there is no room for bias, right? So there has to be a little bit of governance on the rubrics that are defined. Then you know that the output of that is going to be something that is going to be actually evidence-based.
Let's look at AI in a little bit more detail then. It's increasingly important in recruitment terms. How can AI companies, if you like, implement merit-based hiring effectively? For example, in skills assessment or matching candidates, the right candidates to the right role.
Right. So I think what AI, from my experience, what I've seen is the kind of AI models that we have more knowledge than any human being, right?
They have more access to knowledge.
They have more access to knowledge, and those models have been built and trained on, you could say, billions of tokens. So they have more information than any single human being would have. So where it really helps companies is if you have a person that is helping you with recruitment, you don't have to worry about the fact that does this person have the domain expertise to be able to hire for that role? Does this person have the experience that is required to hire for that role? Because you know that you've provided that AI assistance to the person that can help them in making sure that if a CV comes through and that CV happens to be the right fit, it will not be missed, right? So in a lot of examples that I've seen over the last 3 years since I got into recruitment is people are being rejected just because the brand or the companies that they worked for is not a brand that is local to this region, right? Okay. So the recruiter has heard of certain brands they see in the shopping, when they go shopping. But if there is a brand that this person has worked for that is maybe in the UK or the US that they've never heard of, they're not familiar with, they'll say, well, this person doesn't have the right experience, so they'll reject the CV. But then the power of AI then tells you that, hold on, this brand is actually the same as the one that you're looking for. So these are examples, and I think another very good example that I've seen is AI for any organization will be able to help you identify the signals that are there in the CV. So as an example, I remember there was a role where I had shortlisted a candidate for a particular client. I sent the candidate, it was for a senior brand marketing manager. When I sent the CV, they did a Control F on their laptop, right? And they were looking for a keyword, which was pricing strategy. Okay. They came back to me and said, oh, I don't know why you've shortlisted this candidate. He doesn't know anything about pricing strategy and stuff like that. I went back to the AI report, I forwarded it to them, and what it said is that this person has worked as a brand marketing manager for 5 years. He's worked as a senior brand marketing manager for the last 3 years. Pricing strategy is an essential component of brand marketing, right? And this is something that I infer this person would have. That's why it gave a score of 5 out of 10, because he didn't mention it, but the signal was there. And it is something that you should talk to the candidate about in the actual interview. This was the report that came from the AI, the output from AI. And when they actually spoke to the person, he happened to be one of the best candidates that they actually had interviewed, right? So again, I think to be able to do this using AI, it's really going to help organizations be able to identify that needle in the haystack. But to be able to do this at scale with consistency, you cannot do it relying on human capability. It's beyond human capability.
Oh, no, it's very clear you can't. I mean, so AI is going to help people, help for people not to be missed, but also for those hiring to not miss the important points as well. So this is all about including the necessary information, the necessary research.
I mean, if you look at a job description today, right, and you give a job description that has come from a hiring manager, they would want a candidate from God, right? I call it a can frog, right? A candidate from God means that only God can create this person.
Now, sure, it's the ideal, isn't it?
The ideal person. Now, the recruiter has to go through that job description, identify what are the key things the hiring manager is looking for, and then go through all these CVs and maintain that mental map and memory, right? Which even machines can't do today, right? The amount of RAM you need in a computer, you're expecting that from a human being. So what they would be doing is being very subjective in their evaluation. But with the AI capabilities we have today, we can do this very objectively and make sure that for every individual student, I keep mixing student and candidates, for every individual candidate that actually applies, you're not fatigued. And that is actually something that happened to me as a professor, and when I started building these capabilities about 10 years ago.
It seems kind of natural that AI should be part of this process because it is objective, it's dispassionate, it has no inherent biases aside from whatever nonsense somebody's put on the internet somewhere. But it seems to be that you can really take a step back almost if you rely on AI in recruitment terms. I was just thinking there, listening to you. You're a professor. You've worked with students for years. You've lectured. What made you launch byteSpark? What was it?
Well, actually, it was because I worked in the industry for about 15 years, and when I wanted to hire new fresh graduates, I realized that there was not, I couldn't find students who had just graduated who could hit the ground running. So I decided to move into academia, spent 10 years there, and sort of brought in a lot of that industry learning into the classroom. But then when my students started coming back to me and saying, look, I can't find a job. And I'm thinking to myself, hold on, I have given you guys projects to work on with me. I had students at the age of 19 building 5G networks using a Raspberry Pi. And you guys can't get jobs? How can that be? So I started to talk to hiring managers, people in HR, talent acquisition, just to try to understand what exactly is going on. How do you guys, recruit? And that's when it really started to hit me, when I saw things in practice. So there was one lady, wonderful lady, I can't mention her name, but she had 700 CVs come in from LinkedIn. And I asked her, I said, right, so what are you going to do with this? And she said, well, I'm going to pick up 20. I said, how are you going to pick up those 20? Because, as a professor, we're thinking algorithms all the time, right? So what is going to be that selection criteria? She goes, well, I'm just going to go randomly to pick up 20. I said, what?
Randomly?
Randomly. And I said, okay, then what are you going to do? She goes, well, I'm going to go through them and I'll make sure one of them fits. I said, but what if the person is not the right fit? She goes, no. She goes, I have 10 years of experience in recruitment. I know what I'm doing. I know how to make the candidate fit. And that's when I realized that actually she's going to take a round peg and force it down a square hole. And my student might be candidate number 501, right? Which she's probably never going to get to, right? And that's really when I realized that, okay, if I really want to help my own students and the younger generation and people generally in the job market, then maybe some of the AI models that I'd been using to evaluate my own students, I could bring them into the world of recruitment. So I decided to retire from academia. And the first job I got was to find my own replacement. So when I went to Google Drive and I saw 500 CVs, I was like, it's going to be the same problem. I'm going to get fatigued after looking at 5 or 10. Sure. I'm going to be very, very rigorous on the first 10 CVs I look at. I'm going to look for everything in the first 10. But by the time I reach to the second 10 batch, the human fatigue is going to kick in. I'm going to start becoming a little bit more lenient. Same as what I used to do when I was marking the reports, right? So that's when I said, you know what, instead of spending 2-3 hours looking at these CVs, why don't I actually write the code, move the model into this new environment? It took me, I think, 18 hours to do that, not 3-4 hours. But eventually, it gave me 3 CVs. And when I read them, it was like I'm reading a different version of my own profile. And I handed those in, and 2 of those people got hired as a replacement. right? So that gave me the encouragement to say that, you know what, we can build this and we can actually bring this. And again, for me, it was really good because this was stuff that was R&D'd here in the UAE. And this is probably one of the countries where you need it, because when you post a job, you're going to get 1,000 CVs come in. They don't read the JDs.
No, we hear this from recruiters all the time. One particular guest, David McKenzie, who runs McKenzie Jones, this is a very familiar complaint of his.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible.
Yeah.
to
Too many
get
relevant
across.
CVs coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get a little bit more technical. I'm interested in, you say it took you 18 hours to write the original code there rather than maybe the 3 or 4 that you expected. How do you approach these problems differently rather than the traditional hiring tools in technical terms? Can you
Okay.
outline how it works a little bit?
So the way it works is when a job description is created by hiring manager, we have 7 different AI models that are all working in concert with each other. The first model is actually called rubrics, which actually comes up with an evaluation criteria, the rubrics really, to be able to evaluate that candidate. We then make sure that the hiring manager agrees that, yes, these are the key things I'm looking for. Even if the JD is 3 pages long, these are essentially the capabilities I'm looking for. We then use the AI model to then apply weights to this, and then we create a very succinct job description, which I know people will read. We then create screening questions to make sure that we're reminding the person that these are the things we're looking for. So suddenly now, those 1,000 applications comes down to about 200, right? Because people now, even if they just look at the job title, they look at the JD, or they ignore the JD, they go straight in, they will be asked those screening questions. So that helps us a lot in terms of getting in relevant candidates. You still get a lot that just say yes to everything. The second thing that happens is really where we found a big gap in the recruitment market, is getting the actual intelligence from the CV, right? So we built your traditional AI ML models that are able to actually read a CV and get the information out of the CV with a very high level of accuracy. So that means that what goes into our AI models is no longer garbage. Before, what was happening was a lot of the systems that parse CVs actually are not parsing the CVs correctly. And the first experience I had of that was after I retired, I said, you know what, I need to bootstrap this business. Let me at least apply for a job, have something to do on the side. I applied for a job in Google. They were looking for somebody to do some kind of training.
Right.
I put in my CV, and on the very next page, it actually showed me that I have done 16 different jobs in my life, and the very first job I had was when I was born, the year I was born. And I was like, there's your problem. If a big company like Google, on their systems that are ingesting the CVs, are not able to parse the information with accuracy, that's where the problem is. The second problem, or maybe the third problem we saw in the industry, is that a lot of the platforms that are out there are trying to match candidates for a role based on the keywords, right? So as an example for me, and the example I gave earlier as well, is a person may not have put pricing strategy as a keyword or a phrase in their CV, but the person has the capability, right? In the tech world, we have something that is basically called containerization, right? In containerization, we have one technology called Docker containerization. We have one called Kubernetes. So a candidate, hiring or a recruitment person might be told by the hiring manager that I'm looking for somebody that has experience in containerization. But the poor candidate has put the word Docker or Kubernetes. So that's going to be rejected. So that is where we began to realize that actually, you know what, this is one of the inherent problems that is there, is we're still using very old archaic capabilities, which is using keyword matching. If the frequency of the right keyword is there, it's going to work. And obviously, we've been challenged a lot. So we did one example with a company where they had an ATS platform, where a CV came in, and people were ranked. But there was a guy who I think got a high score, and he had only worked for 1 year, right? On our platform, he got a score of 0. On their platform, he got a score of 8 or 80% match. Now, when we went through the CV, what we saw is, because we were looking for program management, right? His CV actually had program manager written so many times, because I meet the program manager every week. I give the program manager report once, I discuss the report with the program manager. So the poor guy had written program manager so many times, the system picked him up as a very good match. But in actual fact, he doesn't know anything about program management,
Yeah.
right? So I think a lot of people are beginning to realize that, yes, the keyword frequency matching capabilities are actually quite old, archaic. I actually just on the weekend published a report on LinkedIn and on our website as well, where we've actually shown that candidates who have scored with us and have been hired, scoring 9 out of 10 on the same keyword matching algorithms, they're available, we implemented them in our system just to see side by side. A person scoring 9 out of 10 on the keyword matching is scoring 3 out of 10. Imagine that. And a person who on the system scores maybe 1 out of 10 because of keywords is scoring 7 out of 10. So we don't worry about that part, but I'm thinking about, imagine the amount of merit-based people that are out there that are actually getting missed by these systems. That is where the problem is.
It's worrying. It's really worrying. You said earlier you built byteSpark because your own students were struggling to get jobs. I mean, you said yourself, how on earth were these guys not? Specifically, what gaps do you see between graduate skills and what employers are looking for today?
So I think there's two ways of looking at it. First of all, automation is eroding the entry job market at a very rapid pace.
Yeah.
And with language models coming in now, we're seeing this happening even faster because automation capabilities are being built faster. But I still think that there's a lot of candidates that are out there who have just freshly graduated that have the skills. And what I'm beginning to see now is they are told by their career advisors that your CV should be 1 page. Now, I go back to students that I had actually done summer internships with, right? And they had built complete enterprise voice systems, right? You cannot describe that on 1 page, right? So what I'm beginning to see is describing your work on your CV, right? And companies using the right AI capabilities to understand that you can do the work is really what is missing, right? But the direction that the students are being sent in is you need to have a 1-page CV because a recruiter is not going to read more than 1 page, right? But they can't actually, so they have to use a lot of adjectives, they have to use a lot of buzzwords, but the reality is the buzzwords doesn't tell me what you have actually done. It doesn't give me a story.
Yeah. I mean,
So that's where the gap is.
Hasn't that always been the situation, I suppose? We've really run out of time. There's loads more I wanted to ask you, but let me just finish off with this. And I think it's the advice question, really, the practical advice. What would you give to graduates, and particularly, I guess, graduates and early career professionals who are kind of trying to navigate this merit-based AI-influenced job market that's coming while they're coexisting in this quagmire that we have at the moment?
So the advice that I have been giving to my students is the same advice I would give to everyone else out there is, first of all, the kind of tech capabilities that are out there today means that we can actually, you all can become an entrepreneur, right? So when you actually start to think about your career, don't think about those lifelong careers, right? Think about projects. And if you have an interest in a particular project, then you have the capability to actually work on a prototype of that project before you can actually position yourself with the company. So there's a lot of self-regulated learning that is required outside the classroom and after you graduate, right? So if you spend all your time just looking for jobs, you're not really going to get anywhere. You can spend maybe 1 or 2 hours looking for jobs in a day, but spend the remaining 8 or 10 hours actually working on projects. Because if you get an opportunity, you write about that in your CV, and hopefully companies will use the right AI systems. I'm really hoping for that. But when you have that conversation, you can actually talk with the passion. You can actually talk about the problems you had. How did you troubleshoot certain issues? How did you overcome certain challenges? Because you've done that. And that straight away will be music to the ears of any hiring manager, because they can see you potentially hitting the ground running. So spend a lot of time, build your portfolio of projects, and be ready to talk about them and practice talking about them.
It's good advice, I think. Dr. Ali Raza is a professor of computing at AI. He's also the founder of byteSpark.ai, which is a UAE-built AI recruitment platform. I've really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you coming in this morning. It's Mira Business FM. It's the morning drive. Don't forget, as we always say, get in touch with the show. We always appreciate a like and a subscribe. And everything we do is available to watch, listen again. Website, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts from. Just look for Mira Business FM. The news is next.
Mira Business FM.